Council special meeting Thursday, June 1st, 2023. I'd like to stand and say pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, take roll.
Mayor John Eric Hoover.
Here.
Vice Mayor Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilman Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilman Bill Colombo.
Here.
Attorney Tom Trask.
Here.
City Manager John Gibbs.
Here.
First, I'd like to start with comments from the general public. I have one signed up, Dave Mueller. Welcome.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. Just a couple quick items. One, I wanted to know what happened to the benches at Waterfront Park that were along the shoreline there. There were two. I know they were needing repaired. It looks like they've been cut off. I talked to one of the utility workers there, and he didn't know anything about them, but those are very useful. I mean, a lot of people go down that park. I'm one of them. Sit there and watch the sunsets, and I'd like to see them try to get back online if possible. One other thing that would be good for the city is if we could get an org chart online for all of our departments so that we can get familiar with who's where. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. That's all I had signed up. Anybody by show of hands like to speak? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to comments from the city manager.
Nothing to answer.
Speakers do. Moving on, comments from mayor and city council. I'll start here to my right. I have nothing as well. Moving right along, first order is the business is the selection of interim city manager. I'll turn that over to Mr. Duke for introduction. Give me something.
Pitch. Oh, you're the wrong end. Got the wrong one. There we go. Yes, it is me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, the necessity, in my opinion, to select an interim city manager comes to us. There's a body of work that needs to continue, and so I just make a quick pitch that the sooner you can select an interim city manager, the quicker we can start to coordinate, collaborate, and be happy to provide as much overlap as is possible to get somebody in the seat and get them brought up to speed quickly.
With that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Anybody?
Last time we had 4 candidates, I think one for us still interested on the committee.
Yeah, before we talked about, we have a list of, we have Tom O'Neill, James Mansell, former city attorney, Jeff Schubridge, and Sam Philip. And we do have Sal here as well as Mr. Schubridge, Tom O'Neill, and James Matthew. They submitted some stuff via email that they won't be able to make it. So,
Well, I suggested Mr. O'Neill, I still, by looking at his resume and all his water plans and so on and so forth, he does have a lot of knowledge in that respect. I know he did it, he hasn't done it for quite a couple of years now, but just a temporary position. And I just think it would be beneficial for us to move forward with him. He'll keep on, I know we're having problems with our water, and maybe he'll be able to help us in the interim with that process as well as keep this right. I've talked to a lot of people, and I've got a lot of positive feedback regarding Mr. O'Neill, his leadership style, how he presented, and how he led us at that time. I really did not get any negatives at all regarding his tenure here or in his previous employment as well. So I still would like to continue with Mr. O'Neill. That would be my suggestion.
I'll give my spiel. I talked to Sal. One of the items that was brought up last meeting, or last time we all spoke, was, and I believe you even brought up the concern as well regarding, if Sal were to be doing the interim manager position, who would take over his role, or how would he adjust his role? I did have a follow-up conversation with Sal on that, and it was a very legitimate concern, and something that I thought about but hadn't thought about fully. So I did have a conversation with Sal, and I think if we all recall, I believe it was the first year of your tenure, there was no Sal actually in his current position. You had promoted him about 1 year thereabouts into your role. So what had happened before then, I believe, was the individual department heads had actually taken over some of the roles, and then you kind of consolidated that, I believe, into Sal's position. So, speaking with Sal, and since at that point he would theoretically be the city manager, I asked him specifically how he would address that. And he, in essence, said, well, part of the role would be to delegate some of those responsibilities that was previously to the department heads for the 2 to 4 months, I think we're probably kind of expecting this search to occur, that he would delegate some of those responsibilities back. So it wouldn't necessarily be that Sal is trying to do his role, and Sal, correct me at any point if I'm speaking out of turn per our conversation, but it's not that Sal would be taking over his role and the city manager role. It would kind of be a reversion of back to what it was when Mr. Duke originally took over the position, because we didn't have a city man, we didn't have an assistant city manager, we didn't have a director of operations. Everyone and the department heads were taking on more of a role, and then there was the city manager, or the interim city manager at that time, I guess I should say, more correctly. So, I still remain that Sal, I believe, is a very qualified candidate to take over. In terms of a seamless transition, I don't think you could get a more seamless transition between operations of Mr. Dude and how Sal would be, or Sal's knowledge of what's going on. Essentially, they're almost one and the same at this point. Even you transitioned it for 5 days, albeit for 4 or 5 days you were gone, and the place didn't blow up in those 4 or 5 days. It worked quite well. Sal had, I believe, a good command of everything at that time. I think it would continue to be a seamless transition, and would be the best in the 2 to 4 month time frame. There is the concern if it goes to beyond 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, how does that work overall? That may be something that is of continued concern. I think if we go beyond 4 or 5 months, we've failed as this body here, especially with what's going on in our agenda item number 2. So, my expectation is this is a 2 to 4 month process. This would be exactly, in terms of workload, it would be similar to what was 2 years ago under Mr. Duke before Sal's promotion. So it should be a fairly seamless transition all the way across, and gets us to really be able to focus on, the permanent manager search. Sal has absolutely no interest in doing the job permanently, which I think is very important in our searches. No offense to you, I understand, and I did a Google search on you and all of that. I understand your current roles and everything. I think, and I welcome you to put in your resume for the permanent position. My concern with Mr. Shoebridge, and this has absolutely nothing to do with his resume or anything like that, is if we put someone who has the interest or the ability to go to a full-time position, I think we will lose in our candidate search for the full-time position. So you're almost contaminating the pool, and anyone who would be looking at Fort Ritchie say, well, there's an interim candidate. 90% of the time, an interim candidate gets the job. I'm not even going to bother. And I think that's a concern to that. So unless we're willing to give it to Mr. Shoebridge at this point, or he subsequently says, I'm not interested in the permanent role, I personally am not, I put him at the end of the list again, no offense to you, nothing to do with your resume. I encourage you to apply accordingly, but that's where we sit with that. I also had a long conversation with Mr. O'Neill. I agree with everything you said with that. If you know, to me, it's Sal and Tom O'Neill in terms of selections for the interim position. Obviously, you know, my initial vote is for Sal, but Tom, I spoke with him at length a day or two ago. I agree with everything he said. He also has absolutely no interest in doing the position full-time. He has a wealth of knowledge, both from a utility perspective. He knows exactly what I mean, he's run the city for 6 years. 6 years? 2000, I think it was 6 years, thereabouts. He's run this city for 6 years. He's run Newport Richie. You couldn't find someone with more past experience. Sal has the current experience. So it's almost which way do we want to, in my mind, which way do I want to go? I prefer the current experience, more seamless transition. If I had a second choice, it would be the past experience with, and ironically, one of the conversations I had with Tom, and he said, well, you know, a lot of the projects you're doing now were stuff we were talking about when I was city manager. So I guess that kind of talks about how fast city government moves sometimes. But it is a good number 2 in my mind for the city manager role. Talking about Mr. Mathau, the other candidate, highly respect where he is right now. I know he's also got a lot on his plate right now, even with his school and that sort of thing. I like his dedication to the city. My main concern with Mr. Mathau is he's an attorney, or was the attorney, city attorney. We have a city attorney. In fact, we have a lot of city attorneys. No offense. I just don't want to see that conflict of interest on an interim basis. It's not worth it when we have 2 other very qualified candidates. That's my spiel.
That's my pleasure. Councilman Casal?
Are we going to have an opportunity to hear from the 2 candidates that are present?
I have no problem opening up the floor to let them speak for themselves. If ask questions, do you want to do that now, or you want to continue to discuss and then after that? Or?
Me personally, I'd like to hear from the candidates.
I'm open to it.
Okay. Who wants to start, Sal or Jeff?
Go ahead, sir.
Sal, welcome.
Name and address.
I'll do that. Sal LeCarey, 7220 Fireside Drive, Port Richey, Florida. Council, I'm here to help. I've always been here to help, 25 years here in the city. Worked multiple departments. I've worked with everyone. To what Mr. McCleary said, Councilman McCleary said earlier, at the time when Mr. Dude came aboard, I was the city clerk. Jocelyn Martinez, our assistant city manager, she also submitted her resignation. I was pretty much the point person with Colin Bassinger to bring Mr. Dude aboard. Went through that entire process. Every candidate that you guys are selecting from, the resumes speak for themselves. Every single one of them, they're all great choices. Mr. Shoebridge's resume, he does, it does list wastewater, water management experience. Tom O'Neill has a very extensive 2-time city manager with Newport Richey, Port Richey. His resume alone, over 40 years of experience. Jim Matthew, once again, 2-time interim city manager, city attorney for a long time resident. Myself, like I said, whatever transition the council wants, I'm there for. Whatever candidate you select for, I'm going to work just as hard. I'm not interested in a permanent position because I strongly believe that a vetted search should be done. Our last vetted search gave us Mr. Dude, and they're really big shoes to fill. It's been a pleasure. It's been outstanding working with you. I'm going to miss you quite a bit. I know a lot of staff is going to miss him. But of course, given his opportunity, I wish him nothing but the best. I believe if that opportunity didn't come up, he'd still be with us for several years. But given that, I have, like I said, I have no interest in that permanent position, but I will help whoever's here. I will do the best I can if you select me. I'm like I said, I don't know what more to say about that, but I'm open to questions if you have any.
You always do that. That you truly do sound like absolutely
Thank you.
applaud you every day.
We all know you, Sal.
And you do work very, very, very hard for us. Yes.
So whatever role I'm in, I have no problem doing so whatsoever. Like I said, you have a great pool to select from. I don't think there's a, and I'm not speaking about myself. I'm speaking about the other three. I think that anyone would greatly fill the role, have the best interests of the city at heart. I also agree with Councilman McClary, with Mr. Shoebridge. If you opt to give him the job, I would strongly recommend not doing a search. That will reduce your chances by 80%. You can always negotiate a short-term contract, see if he's willing to do that, and open the floor to doing that. But to go ahead and do a search with someone who's interested in the permanent position, it's almost a waste of money to do so. I think any of the companies that you'll talk to or decide from will tell you the same exact thing. It just really limits the chances. So that's it. Thank you.
I do have a question. Your current position is your role. This interim position is going to elevate you to a acting city manager. If a situation develops in one of the departments and you have to take action, my understanding that as the employees here, some of you are very, very tight, little family. But if there's a situation that you have to take action that could be very, very hard, are you capable of doing that?
If we're talking about if I have to dismiss somebody, I have no hesitation to do that, and I'll explain why. I've had this conversation with Mr. Dude a couple times. The thing is I think of the entire body. I think of the entire body of employees that work here. I think about over 3,000 residents that work here. If there's an issue where a person needs to be dismissed, then it has to happen. No matter how long I've known them, how long I've worked with them. I got to think about the whole when you think about that certain situation. If we're talking about acting upon a situation, about making a call about an emergency, that's no hesitation. My transition to interim city manager is you're going to be less one person. That's regardless if you choose me, because if we bring in an outside interim, it's pretty much, you're filling one set of shoes with the other. But with Mr. Dude leaving and me filling that role, yes, there'll be one less person, and I'm not going to hire another operations manager overnight knowing that this is going to be a short-term search. I would strongly suggest that it be a short-term search and let your companies do the work that they need to. But we have a great staff here. Every department head knows their jobs. The ones that I oversee, will their responsibilities increase? Absolutely. There's going to be things that I would task them with that I can't address to anymore. And they'll have to step up. But your staff, the staff that your current city manager put together, you have a police chief, your finance director, your fire chief, your revenue manager, your building official now. We have a really great staff, and then everyone that's under them work hard every day. So the transition will be, we're less one person, and people will have to step up, because I'm not going to run out tomorrow and hire somebody, because to me, I think that new city manager should have that choice. But if it's come down to a decision where it's either to benefit that person or benefits the city, I'm going to benefit the city, 100 times out of 100. It just has to. There's really no debate about that. I've always felt that way. I've worked with a lot of people in this city that have come and gone, city managers on down, and some have gone reasons of, you know, just a different job, and some have had to leave because of things that they shouldn't have done. But it's just the way it has to be.
If appointed, what changes would you make?
Very little. Like I said, I'd have to make some, you know, have to meet with the departments that I oversee, which is, just to clarify, would be, you know, Public Works, Utilities, IT, and the HR departments, which our IT department runs very well. We have a great IT specialist aboard. He's been doing a fine job. We're in the process right now of searching for a new company that replace our current, our current data server. Our HR specialist has been with us for now about, a little over 2 years. She's excellent at her job. And our Public Works and Utilities department, Richard Weeks has over 10 years of experience. I foresee him being your director later on down the line, and and if he's not here, he's going to do well somewhere else. Because he has a knowledge of the system, of not only Port Richey's system, but just of water and sewer and stormwater now. And having those three in one person is very rare. Like I said, there's going to be some, I'd have to make some slight changes just, to delegate some of my work, day to day, so I could, address to the issues of the rest of the city and of council. But I wouldn't really make any drastic changes because I really believe that we have a good staff, a great staff.
So the only question I have, obviously, in your opinion, do you feel you'd be overwhelmed, or do you feel it? I mean, if obviously as longer it goes on, it could cause more problems. I understand that, but what I want to make sure that we don't do is put you in that spot, overwhelm you. It's the fact where it causes too much stress, or the people you have to delegate to. I mean, obviously everybody's got a lot of work to do. So, in your opinion, what is it the right thing to do to?
With any with any amount of responsibility, you have stress. I'm not going to say no, and I'll be fine. Of course not. There's always a level of stress to manage and deal with. But I've dealt with each situation for the past 25 years in one form or another. From each department that I was either the public works supervisor, utility billing supervisor, the city clerk, now operations manager. I've dealt with different levels of stress and had to deal with them accordingly. We all have levels of stress that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and it's just how you bring yourself to the table and handle those problems. Communication, of course, is key. And I'll be the first one to tell any of you if there's an issue. I mean, if that's if that's something I can't handle or I need advice from, of course I'm going to seek it from the five of you. But to say that there won't be any stress involved, that's I can't. Of course there will be, but it all depends on how we deal with it. I personally believe that with the transition that we're looking at and hopefully can succeed in doing, I don't see much because once again we have a great staff. I can't say that enough. So for me to say that there's no stress, that I'm not going to say, but with the department heads and the staff that we have, and with cooperation of council, citizens, I don't see a hard transition. Our first mandate is to bring on a city manager that we can start off and get the ball continue running.
And of course, I understand there's going to be stress. That's obvious, but I think you do a great job. You do a great job now. I think you make a great city manager. I just want to make sure that if we decide to go that route, that you're comfortable with it. I guess is what I'm asking.
And like I said, I'm here to help. I'm comfortable with whatever direction that we want to go in. My comfortability, like I said, I've made adjustments. When Mr. Dude appointed me to this position, I took it. I took the ball and I ran with it. I'm hoping I made to your expectations. I strive to do that. But and I'll do the same with council for hopefully the 4 or 5 months that we're transitioning. There are issues that we have on the table that we have to manage. Of course, Cody River Landing, which is well in hand of our engineers. Our limestone pier, still same situation. Our engineers are in the process of design. The Reclamite Road project, which is pretty much on the cusp of being underway, and then after that, we're going to be talking about mill and overlay. The budget, of course, is going to be our number one topic because of the time frame that we're in right now. So, but you have a great finance director who's worked on that, and I'm sure within this month is going to get her final numbers and be able to start having our workshops and talk to council about that. Overall, what we're talking about is the day-to-day operations, and I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of involved in most of them in one form or another. I do oversee those 4 departments, but there's not a day that I don't get a call from, you know, the police department with questions or the fire department with questions, stuff that we collaborate and work together. Don't get me wrong, both chiefs run their departments very smoothly, you know, and no problem, but in one aspect or another, you know, they'll seek my advice when either it's a HR issue or just, you know, a general operations, you know, issue to talk about. So being comfortable about it, I would say so. I would say yes. But once again, if I come across an issue or something, I'll be more than happy to let you all know. I just, my whole thing is that I want this transition to happen the best way possible. We've had a great run so far. The best part of the past few years is that we haven't been in the paper for anything but, you know, look at the improvements of the city. Look what we're doing. Look what we just passed. You know, what's going on in the town. Of course, we all know that the city has been slandered several times with controversy, and I don't want to cause any of that. And of course, our search for the next city manager, we should look for that as well. We want to look for someone who's just going to continue the ball the way it is. Of course, there's going to be topics that'll come up, citizen concerns, things like that, but we'll just have to address them as they come up. There's always going to be a new situation. Today is June 1st. Hurricane season just kicked in, and of course, we already got a tropical storm out there. You know, so all we can do is, you know, prepare for it. You know, we can't control the way the waters move, but the way we react as a city is what's important. And once again, you've got great staff, great department heads that know what they're doing when these times come. They're seasoned. It's not like we're talking about replacing several members of staff. You know, Mr. Dude, he made a lot of changes, a lot of moving around, and to the benefit of the city, they're all been really great. So I think as long as we continue that momentum, we shouldn't have any issues.
Think so? Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
It's hard to follow.
That was tough act to follow.
That is hard to follow. My name is Jeff Shoebridge. I'm currently the town administrator in Reddington Shores. I am the first town administrator that they've had since 2005. The 2005 administrator resigned after 10 months, citing that the commission was not ready. And I will say that is very similar to the circumstance of today. I'm very pragmatic. From everything that I've heard from Sal, the staff here is very well suited to going through. My philosophy is very straightforward. I'm not going to take up very much time. My core belief, we do better tomorrow than we were today, and today we do better than we were yesterday. You don't change things, as is in my cover letter, you don't change things just to change them, you change them to make them better. More heads are better than one. You've got to have a team, and it sounds like you've got a great team here. And that's something that I would be very proud to be a part of. To speak to Mr. McCleary, whatever the council decides this evening, I am extremely interested in the permanent position. And if the council feels that it is in the best interest of the city to not have an interim that is interested, I very much respect that, because I am very interested in the position and I would like to put in for that. But outside of that, again, that's a hard act to follow. He said I couldn't have said it better, and I'm available for any questions that you have.
In your current role, I believe, and I looked you up online. So
Yes, sir.
If I'm wrong in anything, fake news or whatever, please correct me. I believe you're contractually or agreed to staying on your current role until June 30th. Is that correct?
That is the understanding that we have. However, the mayor and I have discussed that if something were to come available, then there is flexibility in that.
One question I had, or have, if we were to select you as interim, I assume you're probably looking for other positions, right? I see you're interested in ours, but is there other ones kind of on the horizon? I guess would it be possible? I mean, of course, it's possible that that timing might cause you to go away. I guess, not find something else. I mean, how many irons you got to fire? I guess is my question.
That is a very valid question, Mr. Mayor, and currently I am, as I gave my notice last month, I am seeking positions. I live 6.5 miles, as the crow flies, I live 6.5 miles from here. I live off of Old 54 in Newport Richey. I purchased my house last June. I spent $45,000 remodeling it. I love the neighborhood, I love the area, and my preference is to remain very local. I have a strong preference to remain local. That being said, everything that I am currently involved in is in the infancy. It's in the very beginning stages. I would not have an issue with committing to the council a time frame to allow for a selection. But again, I am very interested in the permanent position.
Another question I have, just going on the resume, obviously you've kind of bounced around a little bit, short snippets of time, different places. What is your ultimate career goal? Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
My ultimate career goal is to be a city manager in a town where I can be a long-term difference maker. I know I've got a little bit of salt and pepper up on the top here, but I also have a 2-year-old at home. And I would really like for my 2-year-old to have a nice, stable childhood. So I'm looking for a home. I had hoped my current location could have provided that. That is not the case.
I don't have anything else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Back to Tom. There's two candidates that I'm interested in. One is Mr. O'Neill, the other is Sal. What we have today that Mr. Duke has created, I don't like the idea of disturbing the direction we're going. I came on this board when there was so much turmoil, and I feel that we've gone in a great direction. I like to see us continue in that direction. As Sal said, Port Richey, anything that's been said has been positive, and we need to continue that. Until we get that permanent situation again, the two candidates I'm not very interested in, Tom and Sal.
Mr. Hoover has yet to speak.
Got reserved to the end.
I'm not here to shoot holes in everybody. Mr. Schubert seems like a very nice man, but again, as we've all, I thought we agreed in the last meeting that we would not entertain somebody for interim who was interested in the long term. And I appreciate Mr. Schubert's interest in the long term, and I sincerely, hope for him to be part of the application process when we look for a long term. Certainly has some good potentials there. Again, I'm not here to shoot holes in anybody. I've known Sal for a very long time, and he's come a long way, and he's done a lot of good stuff. Tom O'Neill, I was on the council that hired Tom O'Neill. I worked with Tom O'Neill for almost the entire tenure. I found Tom O'Neill to be very good in communicating with council. He reached out frequently to council. like every city manager, he has his strong points and he has his less than strong points. And again, I'm not gonna get into that. I'm just gonna say he had a good tenure and he left under his own terms. He resigned because of pressures that were building in this city that we all know what pressures those fruition.
We don't need to go there.
We don't need to really go there. So, Tom didn't leave because he wanted to go. He left because he just realized he wasn't gonna be able to accomplish what he wanted to do. That's understandable. I'm still of the opinion that, Mr. Matthew is the best choice. Given his 2 terms as an acting mayor, he's done that before. Given his recent tenure and his involvement in what has been and will be a very difficult budget process coming up. And I want everybody to really wrap our heads around this. Essentially, in my mind, he has the best capability to hit the ground running with the budget process that's essentially getting into overdrive the day John walks out the door.
He timed it that way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I didn't say that. You did. So, July, August, September, I mean, we are up to our necks in budget. Jim knows budgets. He knows our past budget. He knows those aspects of it that will make our life a lot easier going through this budget process. That's a really strong reason why I think, in my mind, he's the best selection. And again, he has been brought before. He's sat in the acting mayor chair, acting city manager chair 2 times before. He has no desire for a full-time job here. He's perfectly, anybody who knows Jim knows that whatever time he commits to in the city, he's gonna be here as long as he needs to be here, because that's just the way Jim is, so. But as has been said, he's not doing this because he wants to work. He's doing this to help the city. So, and he knows his own skills. And if he didn't feel he was up to the job, he would have never agreed to do it. So that is I'm still of that mind. I haven't moved off that particular. So that being said, I mean, I leave it up to council. We got to make a decision. We have, several candidates, and we got 5 people voting up here. So, let's get something done.
Got one left.
So, my commentary, I've thought a lot about this since the last council meeting. I've listened to all of your all's advice and that. And originally, I was of the mindset that kind of try before you buy it. I look at this interim position as opportunity to get somebody in here and see how they do, and then it turned it permanent. However, after the advice I've heard from you all, I second guess that. I do see the detriment in having an interim that's interested in full-time would dilute the pool. And we definitely don't want to do that. So I totally agree that we probably should move in a direction of selecting the interim that is only going to be the interim. So that's where I stand on that. And of course, no offense, Ms. Shoebridge, you have a technical resume. I think you'd be a great fit. I definitely want you to apply so we can consider you in the future for the permanent. But I think best case to keep a good pool of candidates interested in a job, we do need to keep somebody that's not interested in interim.
With respect, Mr. Mayor, what I did not say at the podium, if it were the difference between the two, I would withdraw my interest in the interim position to be a candidate for the permanent.
I appreciate that. So, I think, and one thing I want to point out about all 4 candidates, it ain't a good choice. They've had experience. My first choice would be Sal, and there's several reasons for that. Obviously, that to me seems like it's the most seamless transition. He's pretty much doing the heavy lifting of the job now. That's one reason I asked, was he comfortable doing that if we signed that to him? And he assured me that he is comfortable. I think you do a great job, and it would be seamless. He's in the current administration now. When it comes to Mr. Mathau and Mr. O'Neill, obviously, they're part of our past, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I respect both those individuals. I know there's some history there with Mr. O'Neill. Again, don't need to go there. It's really not important. He's a fine candidate. He's got the knowledge. I think he did a great job. But again, he left here. He was here. He left here. I don't really want to go back. I want to continue moving forward. And so, in my mind, the only right decision to make is Sal, in that opinion. Again, Mr. Mathau, he was here, just a great service to the city, would be a fine interim city manager. He's moved on, and I think we need to move on as well. And that's the only commentary I have. As we come to a vote, I was going to open up to see how y'all want to do this, if we should each vote on a candidate, tally it up, and then go from there. I know we have to have a 3-vote to confirm it, and so we may have to, as we do that initial vote, drop the lower candidates off and then put whoever had the highest votes left to decide that.
Or we can do it this way, motion to nominate Sal for position of interest.
That would be another option. So I have a motion for Sal Lakari. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for Sal. Any other further discussion? Before we move on, I wanted to see, I have one signed up from the public. Mr. Mueller, welcome.
Thank you. Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. I appreciate your willingness to discuss this and come to resolution. One thing for sure, you need to be firm on the interim cannot be the permanent. I think that was a detriment the last go-around and potentially delays the process. So I think you're moving in the right direction there. Let me talk about Sal. Sal's currently acting as chief of staff. He trained Mr. Sosaman the last time and Mr. Duke this time. Did a fine job. Sal knows the issues. He's currently serving in this capacity today and has been for a while. So he knows the issues, he knows the people. He referenced 25 years of service, and thank you, Sal, for mentioning that. I appreciate somebody that's been a long time in their role. Sal's got a vested interest to perform well. Anybody else, I mean, these guys aren't coming back to a job here. They're just interim people. Sal wants to do a good job and effectively has been. It also potentially saves the salary for a short period of time. Always looking after that. And as far as the budget goes, I think Rachel is well capable of understanding the issues. I've had lengthy conversations with her, and she knows the issues and concerns and will do a good job working with the departments. As far as Jim, he left because he wanted to, didn't want to work full-time. And coming back and getting immersed in the city again, I'm not sure that's going to be a good fit, even though it's just a short term. As far as Tom goes, I really don't know anything about him, but it sounds like he's done the work and can do the job as well. And as far as Jeff, I like the fact that he's got a pretty good resume. Sal even suggested an idea, said maybe you try before you buy with a potential like that. But my recommendation, from what I'm seeing on the list of candidates, I would stand right behind Sal. I think he's done a fine job and has a vested interest in continuing to do a fine job. Thank you.
That's all I have signed up. Anybody else would like to speak by show of hands?
I would like to just make a couple of comments. One is, the last time we did a city manager search, the rule was that the interim could not apply full-time. And it wasn't until the very last few weeks of the narrowing of the search that the city council all of a sudden decided, Mr. Sossaman expressed a desire to get in a running and the city council allowed it to happen. I would stress to this council, we do not do that again. I about went through the roof when that happened, because, you know, the council had gone through a months-long process, as did, you know, the person who was doing the search for us, and all of a sudden, we just changed the rules. And John will tell you all about that, you know, and, you know, you saw that too. So we were lucky that John kept his hat in the ring and didn't run away at that point in time. So, there was one other. I just related to something Mr. Cooper said. I think I missed it, you were saying, but it escapes me now. I just wanted to bring that point up.
That absolutely happened. I totally agree with
You
you.
know, let's not do that again.
Agreed.
Absolutely not.
I totally agree.
100%.
Is that something we should change the motion to include it?
Well, no, because you can always motion it later. I think we just have to internally agree to not do it. There's no further motions necessary from that perspective.
So after you make this motion to decide whether, what the candidate is or who the candidate is, we're going to need some direction from the council as to the employment agreement. As you know, your charter provides that there has to be a written agreement for the city manager's position. The things that the attorneys would be looking for are direction on salary and benefits, health insurance, life insurance, severance pay, car allowance, phone allowance, laptop, you know, those types of things. We're going to need some direction in preparing the agreement. The way you can do that is that you can basically agree that the city manager and the city attorney's office would negotiate with whoever the candidate is, bring it back to you for your consideration, but give us some direction. If there's some direction you want to give us, give it to us tonight. Otherwise, we're going to come back here with our best shot. So.
And thank you, Mr. Travis, that reminded me of one other thing I wanted to bring up. I hope there's not an automatic assumption here that Sal will take on these duties and not get extra compensation.
Absolutely not.
I mean,
It's never happened.
yeah, I don't know if we have to. That was never my intention.
I just wanted to. I want to make that clear. We've had a number of interims over the years, and when they were on staff, they got paid extra for.
And that was always, at least my thought.
And that'll be worked out, obviously, once we do a selection, then there's gonna be a bit of a negotiation going on. It's exactly what the details are.
I mean, do I have to amend my, I mean, right now I have the motion to offer to select Sal. Do I have to amend my motion to that, or?
No, you should address that motion first.
Okay.
And then once you come to the candidate that you're picking, then maybe another motion would be in order for you to give us some direction. And it may be that you don't really have any, just say the city attorney and the city manager can work that out and bring it back to you, a draft agreement. So whatever your direction is, we're going to need something though.
Yeah. So what we'll do, we'll clear this motion, and then right before we go on to the next order of business, we'll have a discussion about direction. Absolutely.
I'll submit in writing that I'm not interested in a permanent position if you selected me tonight. I have no problem doing so. What I am weary of is that I am a full-time employee here at the city, part of the FRS program. I do not wish to go under contract because of my current position, and I don't want that position affected or my full-time employment. That's one of my stipulations for assuming this position. I know the city manager has a contract that they have to go by, but interim in the past has not been submitted by contract. If that's a mandate that council wants, and I cannot agree to that, because I cannot jeopardize what I've worked hard for the past 25 years to go under independent contract now and threaten my retirement and the amount of years that I've put into the city. So as far as salary is concerned, we can discuss that if you choose me to do that. But I just wanted to make those points as we follow up. Okay.
Okay, so you were saying that with a contract, the way it was presented or perceived, that you would have to resign, quote unquote, to go under contract to be an independent practitioner.
No, that's definitely going to have to be a point to be brought up for the attorneys and whatnot, but I'm stating this now in public, on record, that if that is the case, then I decline the position, because I can't threaten what I've worked hard for, so I'm,
We can definitely work that out. We can prepare the agreement to reflect that his retirement is not going to be adjusted in any particular way. There's not going to be any additional contributions or deductions or whatever. It's a contractual obligation that you can, be,
Because he's gonna step back to this position when a permanent is.
and that's the way the contract will be drafted.
Well, he's essentially not relinquishing his position. He's just taking on the additional duties.
We're keeping his position, then giving a bump for the
Right.
additional
Well,
work.
I respect,
we've had this
absolutely. I would
before.
not want to either, so I want to make sure that we're all clear that I understand what's going on.
And we had this before with Mr. Matthew. We had it before with a former police chief, Dave Brown, who stepped in as interim for a period of time. And he just got paid an extra X amount of
Yeah,
dollars.
basically, it's a second job from his.
which,
It wasn't a second job. It was basically I don't know if you want to call it a stipend or a bonus for additional duties.
which in that case, when Shirley Dresch, Chief Dave Brown, and the other, we actually had 3 chiefs that were interim before. That was basically like I said, it was a stipend to their paycheck, but they remained city employees. So like I said, and that's my main concern. I just wanted to make sure that's, everyone understands that. Thank you.
And I guess I got a question to follow up on that. If it's interim, if we, again, maybe this is a question for you, Mr. Trask. Instead of putting him under contract as a city manager, if we were to, say, promote him to assistant city manager in his current role, and do it that way, is that?
That's not what you want to do.
No.
Your charter requires you to have a city manager. It requires you to have a written agreement with the city manager. So you can have that. He can be the temporary city manager under contract under the same terms as he has right now, with additional dollar amount, whatever you agree to for the additional responsibilities. You can also contractually agree that he will have the opportunity to return to his position once you pick your full-time city manager. So that's all, we can draft the agreement to reflect all those things, to do what you want, to protect his interests, and obviously he wouldn't be signing it if he didn't believe it, his interests would be protected.
Let's clear this motion and then do the motion to have the smarter people figure it out.
No, I agree. I just want to make sure that his concerns before we select him will be met, I guess. That's how we can do that.
We can draft the agreement to reflect that, yes.
Okay, I'd say a motion in a second. We kept the public short. Let's make sure by show of hands, anybody else like to speak? That being said, I'll put to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now, as previously discussed, we'll open the floor to discuss direction to move forward with Sal as our interim city manager.
Motion to appoint the city manager and the city attorney to come up with a reasonable agreement with Sal to be brought back to council for final review and approval.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any further
Did I do
discussion?
that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Have a motion second. Any further discussion? I'd like to open up the public by show of hands. Anybody like to speak? Seeing no hands, I'll put it to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Sal.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
New hat, new chair.
Yeah, you get over here.
Do you have to leave your hat now when you leave, John?
No, he doesn't get my hat.
Can you at least get him a duplicate hat?
I'll buy him a new one.
All right.
He doesn't want your old hat.
Y'all heard it here. John is buying Sal a congratulatory hat.
It'll be part of the contract.
In the minutes.
Okay. Let's get busy. Second order of business, selection of a recruitment firm to search for a new city manager. I'd like to pass it to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is, in my opinion, incumbent on the city the council to select a recruitment firm and then task them and expect them to do the hard work to bring you 3, 4, 5, 6 qualified candidates and do that as expeditiously as possible. Mr. Shoebridge is correct, your inclinations are correct. The longer you take, good candidates are gonna slip away. And that's just the reality of our business. And so I would implore you not to take too much time when the recruiter has the right number of candidates for you. Take a look at them and choose the one that fits your personality. Because the recruiter is not going to bring you candidates that are not qualified. They'll all be able to do the job. At that point, it comes down to, which candidate fits with the way you want to do business. So, having said that, we need to consider the selection of a recruitment firm.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. I'll open the floor to discussion.
Well, we used Benzinger
Yes.
last time. That was our previous recruiter that y'all used. That suggested Mr. Dutas.
I personally didn't see a problem with them. They did provide some very qualified candidates, obviously, what we currently have. I'm not familiar with the others. I'm just going by with what we had last time.
I looked at the dollars. I believe Cullen was more expensive than he was last time, substantially.
Yes, he was. And his firm is the top of the list as far as the most expensive now. The other firm, the Crawford and Thomas, is 20% of the city manager's salary. I emailed you the city manager's current salary and what it will be on October 1 as per contract. So it would be 20% of 127. You factor that, which is in the realm of 120, 24.5, 25,000, which is pretty much the same. Municipal Solutions is your lowest. The packets I gave you, like I said, each firm, Crawford Thomas had the smallest amount of information as far as like what their firm does and stuff like that. They just provided a proposal, but both Municipal Solutions and Colin Bassinger, of course, provided quite a bit of information in the previous searches that they've done for other cities. But the question is that I believe when I pulled up what Colin did for us 3 years ago was about 22.5 back then. So yes, he's raised his prices a bit.
One of the reasons I think maybe, I have not spoken to him, I don't know, but he has several searches ongoing right now. Ironically, I counted 5 or 6 searches, 3 of which are for a city roughly our size right now that he has ongoing. So we have a lot of competition out there I don't know if that involved why his price went up or all. He's busy right now. Sometimes, when firms get busy, they increase their pricing, whatever the case may be. The other firm, Municipal Solutions, in my review, looks like they had a nice price of $23,000, I believe. Colin was a more all-inclusive price. Colin included all background checks, full background checks for candidates. Municipal Solutions had that as additional fees that would be coming forth. So the $23,000, although enticing, may not be the complete value. I can't say would it go up to 32 or not. That's just something that I happen to see and review. So, I know I like Colin. I think he did a good job. I don't have an opinion beyond that right now.
So a question I have, do you think Colin would negotiate his contract if we?
I didn't discuss that with him. I mean, that's something I could bring to the table, but then of course that delays us picking a firm by finding out that information. So I don't know if how long council wishes to delay selecting someone. I did not pose that question about negotiating. I mean, he was one of the first that sent me, he was one of the, like I said, he sent me his proposal and it was complete. And We just kind of figured that was bottom line.
The other concern with six searches he has ongoing right now, plus whatever else non-municipal, I don't know how much he'd be willing.
One of the questions I had, Sal, was in Collins, the city's obligations were providing, coordinating the lodging for the candidates outside the area, paying for all that, that's our responsibility. But I didn't see that in the other packet.
It is.
Is it in there? I couldn't find it, okay, okay.
It's under.
And it's the same,
Yeah, it's.
I wanna make sure I was
yeah,
comparing
that's-
apples to apples, I
yeah,
just couldn't find it.
They had actually some more, cause like I said, Colin picked up all the background checks, like, they did not. They only did the first round of background checks, the more complete background checks, and the educational background checks that Colin does, they charge extra for. So,
Yeah, I just wanna make sure I was, thank you. I mean, we had good luck, and you can't always, we had good luck, and I understand they're doing 6 searches, but they're doing 6 everybody's doing searches, so, to use that, I wouldn't use that as a negative. We had good luck with Mr. Doobie. They presented a lot of great candidates to us last time. I know it's more money, but you get what you pay for, so.
I was just saying, hey, we got a lot of competition out
Yeah,
there
we do,
right now.
you're right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, from my standpoint of what we have 3 potential companies here, only 2 of them to be taken seriously. I think Colin Bazier's, A, their Florida roots, B, the laundry list of positions they have filled in Florida. Having a strong understanding of what it takes to be a city manager in Florida with Florida law and CRAs and all that stuff. Yeah, they may be more. I don't think it's a lot more. I think it's worth it. We had experience with them before, which counts to me that it was not a negative experience. I didn't have anybody, I've never heard any issues we had last time around with the way Colin Basinger ran the search. So for me, it's a pretty easy decision.
Okay, I have some comments. I think they were all from Florida though, aren't they? Is that not the case?
No.
Municipal Solutions is nation.
We're in Arizona.
Arizona.
Last was Florida. It's the amount of information that came in, obviously, Colin Basinger was very thorough, which was nice to go through all that. One thing I couldn't get past on the Municipal Solution is they spelled our city name wrong in some of the material, which I couldn't get past that. Which, it's probably a stupid thing to notice.
Sending somebody to the wrong city after we pay for it.
Well, it's the right city, it's spelled, R-I-C-H-I-E. Well, I guess that's, that attention to detail bothers me, I guess, because it was pretty glaring. And there were some other things I didn't really care for that. I actually didn't, so how would you say the lower cost one was Municipal Solutions?
Mm-hmm.
I guess depending on the salary of it being, but Crawford Thomas was.
And then there's that on, so we don't really know.
Right, yeah, so they're down there as well. While their material was not a whole lot there, I mean, it didn't sound horrible. Like I said, obviously, we need to be price sensitive. One of the things I wanted to throw out there as an idea, obviously, we can always hire a firm to do this, the search for some candidates. We already have 2 candidates. One you probably don't know about. They sent to me and I forwarded it to John with me, but he kind of stacking them up with Iris. But there are 2 candidates that have showed interest in the permanent. So we already have 2 candidates. What I was going to propose, discuss, see what you guys think, is as we have 2 candidates, we can look at those, actually bid the job, see what we get internally. I mean, we're quite capable of putting a position description out and seeing what we get. Obviously, you don't want to drag this out any longer than it has to, but I don't want to spend $30,000 if we don't have to either. And I guess that brings me to one question. If we hire one of these firms, I'm assuming this is correct, that let's say we do Colin, basically we pay the $30,000 and we end up hiring Mr. Shoebridge. Obviously, he came to us outside the agency. We wouldn't owe them anything. Is that correct?
Once you engage them, you would wind up.
You would have to go
Because
through
in the package, they talked about if you select one of our candidates. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, but it still goes through them.
Yeah, he would wind up going.
So basically, those resumes with the have to go to that recruiter?
Yeah, he applies to them. doesn't matter if people send resumes to me in email, I wouldn't even read it, perfectly honest with you. I can tell you, I've been through a city manager search where we did it in-house. It was very labor intensive. It ate up a lot of staff's time and it took a very long time. It is not money saved.
It's a lot of vetting
in
and
any
stuff
way,
like
shape,
that.
or
Well, if I could add on that.
I'm just saying, having gone through it, and I know we did. I remember sitting there having, we had a select committee of folks in the city who weeded out the obvious, ones were like, I'm gonna raise the sidewalks. Okay, let me throw it out. And then all of a sudden we got a stack of well over 100 resumes for each one of us to sit through and read through and weed out. And then as a group, come up with our top 5 out of this 100. I mean, it took a long time and it took a lot of staff time. So it's not a money saver and it's not going to get us where we need to be, which is a new city manager in a relatively short period of time.
And to your point, and I agree, it's absolutely, it's a lot to do there, even for a full-time dedicated HR person. What I want to follow on with is that my suggestion would be if we was to entertain that, to try to save that money for a short period of time, to see how we would do. We could create an ad hoc committee and that would actually involve the community. And my thought was, is just throwing, brainstorming, but say we had a member from each one of our boards and committees on that committee. The HR person could chair that committee, have a couple members from the community at large be on that committee, as well as maybe a representative from the business area, one of the business owners down there. So that collective body would then vet those resumes and bring it back to us. So they would be, in a sense, doing the work for free. And they have a vested interest because they're in a community. So I think that'd be a good opportunity to get community involvement in selecting next city manager, as they could vet those resumes, and it would help alleviate some of that workload that we talked about. If that's, one, we'd have to get the people in the community to sign up for that. And I think there's interest out there to do so, if that was an option. Again, we can always, we can limit that to 30 days, try to put something together and see what, bid a job, they're coming in, and then if we get that committee put together, they can start vetting those, and if it looks like it's gonna work, we move forward with it, or and I'm even okay with, if we decide to entertain that option, go ahead and tonight decide which one of these we're gonna use to immediately deploy that at the instant that we see that's not gonna work. Again, I'm just trying to be as frugal as possible, because $30,000 here, we're doing employee surveys, which I think was $25,000, and these $25,000, $30,000 projects add up, and so every bit of money we do with these other things, it's less we can do for the actual work we need to do for the city, infrastructure and whatnot. So I just want to throw that out there. Again, we can discuss that if you guys are totally off, you don't see.
I think a professional city manager is probably going to be going through a professional company as one of these two, as opposed to looking in the newspaper or wherever, or in the city manager association. They're going to be going to one of these companies, and we need and we want and we deserve to get the best of the best. And so I think it's a great idea, but I still prefer to go to one of these companies. They do a whole lot more than just sit around for $30,000. They are doing work. They're screening, they're doing background checks, they're doing a lot of other stuff. They're helping with development of what we're looking for. They're helping with salary negotiation, with salary thing. That in-house doesn't do that. So I respect what you're saying, but I still think a professional city manager who is looking for a long-term job professionally would use a company.
Yeah, no,
The CEO doesn't just look on the newspaper for a CEO job. They go to a company and a recruiter, and then they come to you.
Sure, and I totally see the value. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm just an alternative idea. I think it's outside the box to try to save some money. If I could follow on to that one more thing, we do have 2 candidates. At the very least, I think, and maybe you guys want to see more candidates than just that, but I think, can we at least look at those 2 candidates and see if one of those are very viable, and we save all this, don't have to put out.
Here's my concern with that. And I agree, it's a good idea to try and save money wherever we can. My concern holistically with that is the committees, they're not used to looking at city manager resumes. We could appoint whoever we want, they may not know what they're looking at. They may try, they want, but a lot of people don't necessarily know how to read resumes. The second part is, then who does the background checks? Who does the experience research? Who does the reference checks? How do we set up the processes for that? Because now you're actually opening yourself up to equal opportunity employment concerns. Oh, well, I checked 3 references here, but none here. Well, why did you do that? And we're a public entity, so we do have to be careful with all of those policies and procedures, which these firms do every day, day in and day out. I would prefer to let these firms do what they do best, and our boards and committees do what they do best, and we do what we do best. Sometimes the most expensive thing you do is hiring the wrong city manager or the wrong person who isn't qualified. You think $30,000 is expensive? Get the wrong person in. That'll be a drop in the bucket. So that's really my concern. In terms of those 2 resumes, it follows along the same line. Who does the reference checks? Who does the background checks? Who does, the initial interviews? We're looking at a piece of paper from this fine gentleman here. No offense, this piece of paper could be complete and utter BS. I don't think it is. But someone's got to check that. Someone's got to vet that. We don't have the resources to do that. So I'd rather the whole thing just go through that.
Well, just to that, we do have a full-time HR person. We do hire other people besides city managers. I don't think they do back.
We just hired an interim city manager who's going to be relying on all those.
But we do background checks. I'm assuming, right, Mr. Duke?
Yes.
Well,
So, basically.
we have the capability to do these things.
We run basically a police background check. You have a police record. We're not checking to make sure the degree is legitimate.
Right.
We're not doing pre-interviews, which is something your recruiting company will, the recruiters would call me as a candidate and say, tell me why you want this job in this place. And to be able to go back to the council and give you a very robust set of candidates. So running the police check is easy. But doing a thorough review of each candidate, their experience, comparing the degrees, make sure the degree is legitimate. In my case, call Wichita State, say, is this guy really a graduate? Now that, some of that staff might be able to do, but that's a huge body of work. And to be quite blunt, our staff doesn't have the experience in vetting this position. And
No, make perfect sense.
This is just a really important position. This position runs the city. They run the city, and he is more than welcome to put his hat in the ring in the company. I absolutely have seen it, and I will continue to look at it, but I absolutely am against us just vetting it. I think it needs to go through a company.
I move to retain the services of Colin Basinger as included in this package.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anybody from the public like to speak? Mr. Schubert, welcome.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Jeff Shoebridge, Newport Ritchie, Old Highway 54. With respect, I agree. And I'm making an assumption that I may be one of the 2 that you were speaking of, but it is in the best interest of the city to cast a wide net. As an example, and as far as the background checks, as an example, Trask Dagno completed my background check for my current position. That background check is approximately 300 pages long. That is well beyond the scope of a normal background check. So I would, with respect, agree with your colleagues that you want to cast a wide net with your search, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And I do agree. Like I said, I just want to put that out there to look at all options. Before we vote, was there anybody else in the public? Oh, Chair. Welcome.
Sherry Scher, 7802 Davis Street. As somebody on Board of Adjustments, I do not want to do this search for you. I did enjoy looking at all the resumes last time around, and it was very nice to see that, but I want somebody else to do that pre-qualification first. So I do hope that any resume that you entertain goes through the company you choose and doesn't come from an outside source. Everything should go through the company that you choose. And please choose a company, not your boards. We don't want to do it. Thank you.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. As I recall, during the last process, and I believe in the first pass, they did not feel they got enough qualified candidates and extended the time beyond that, kind of lengthened the process. And my concern, again, is people leaving the pool, right? So to what effect you can put parameters around that? Right now, you have 30 days before you got an exit of the current city manager, and then effectively the interim manager take over. I think you got at least a 6 to 8 week period right now that if we get going fast, we should be able to come to resolution within that time frame and potentially only look at a 1 or 2 month scenario where we're dealing with one or down a full city manager. But to the extent that you can get that rolling, and potentially you got 2 candidates already that could enter that pool and get that resolved. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? One point of discussion just before the motion for Colin Basinger. They are the highest priced entity here. I'm okay with moving forward. Like I said, I do see the value, and I agree with all your points, except that we're just brainstorming. But I would probably not go with that particular one. So I just want to make sure I'm going to vote no on this motion, but it's not because necessarily going this route, but I probably went with a different vendor. So that being said, any further discussion? All in favor?
Just to be clear, the motion is for Colin Basinger.
That's correct. Yep. And motion second. We're going to vote.
Oh, easy time, girl, down.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion carries. That concludes council business. I'm looking for a motion for adjournment.
I do have.
Were we going to talk about the contract?
We did that.
We did the motion.
They're going to put it together and come back to us.
In a draft format to give you our suggested form of it, and then you can tell us whether or not that's acceptable. And if we need to go back to the drawing board after we provide it to you, we'll be doing that. But we'll come back to you with an employment agreement. Okay.
One item along the lines of the motion we just passed, and I don't know if this is going to be proper, but the clerk is probably still going to be getting resumes in for city manager positions. Do we just want them to be forwarded to Colin Basinger and not to, I'm just trying to get a direction from council to them. Any city manager resumes that do come in to the clerk or whomever, unless it's directly to our email address, just get forwarded to Colin Basinger and we don't even look at them?
Mr. Trask, what would the proper process be in that respect?
Well, once you sign the agreement, I think that would be the process, that anything that you receive, that you provide it to Colin, and then he would vet that. So I would definitely suggest you forward it that way.
Yeah, so we don't even look at it.
It doesn't matter if you look at them, it just, it needs to go to him to vet them.
I mean, somebody sends me a resume out of the blue. I mean, I can get resumes for city clerk out of the blue, you know, I mean, do I have any responsibility at all to forward that resume? Because frankly, but we have never said as a city body here since the start of this process, everybody, hey, you know, or we put in the newspaper, you want the job, you know, pick a councilman and send a resume to it. I mean, I don't even see myself in any way, shape, or form part of this process. So to me, basically, somebody sending me a resume out of the blue is junk mail.
So, it's definitely a public record. It's not-
No, it's still
Okay,
not.
we would retain it, and you'd provide it to the city clerk, and the city manager would give direction as to where it would go from there. Okay.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, what I've directed staff to do so far, anybody that gets a resume, and you're right, Mr. Colombo, they could show up anywhere, somebody could walk in with one. But what I've directed staff to do is to forward those to Iris, HR, and I've directed her to keep a file. And at the point that council has determined what the process will be, then she will turn those over to, you know, now that you've selected a firm, those go to that firm. And
That's fine.
and so that, we've already had that set up.
If I get one, do I have to do anything? Oh, yeah, I'll go and forward along.
If you just send it to either me or the clerk or Iris,
I'll send it.
we will get it on to Mr. Benzinger and.
Yep, that's fine. Motion adjourned.
All in favor, signify by.
Wait.
No,
I was trying to
not
second
available.
it.
Oh, you get
I
what
was
I'm
just
saying.
trying to second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.